Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bill Naaman's Bogus Hangout. And have our guests introduce themselves. And start with Zara because I know she likes it. Zara?
I used to think you were picking on me. Now it's like, okay.
It's old
Hi,
school, old world chivalry.
I see.
There we
Holding the door open, right? Hi, everyone. My name is Zara Altair, and I write content for the web and ghostwrite
Doc,
also.
I'm
Would
Doc
you?
Sheldon and of Deep SEO Conference, and I just uh, pester Steve and Terry mostly.
Steve, would you introduce yourself?
Steve Grenzer, also with Deep SEO Conference, and I put up with Doc.
Full time profession there.
Thomas, please introduce yourself.
Tom Zickel, founder of Blueprint Marketing, and I sit on the board of a few financial literacy companies and fintech companies.
Terry, please let us know who you are.
I'm Terry Van Horn. Some people know me as Webmaster T. I started as a webmaster, did SEO for 25 or so years. Now I'm going to be teaching those two things. So basically, I feel the two go hand in hand. I'm not one who believes that you can do it without fully understanding HTML and how to build a web page correctly.
And I'm Bill Slawski, author of SEO by the Sea and the director of SEO research for Go Fish Digital. And I agree completely on the teaching aspect. I think you learn so much by teaching, by helping others learn.
Yeah, in the past, I mentored some people are kind of well known in the industry.
You also engage in a lot of self-development by helping other people meet their development plans.
Yeah,
It's amazing how much you can learn about a topic by trying to teach it to someone else.
Yep, absolutely.
it's like having another person's eyes looking at it, and you get to work off them.
I taught internet literacy at a community college and putting together the lesson plans. Thinking about what I was going to teach taught me so much. And then I get to do crazy little things like I tore apart a computer in front of the class, opened it up and showed everybody what it looked like on the inside.
Oh, that's
Did
really
you
cool.
did you get it back together though, Bill?
Yeah.
'Cause I did that with my dad's alarm clock and it didn't end well.
Okay, well, Terry put together a list of documents that we're going to talk about a little bit today. And one of the ones that I'm sort of proud of was part of a new category that I added to SEO by the Sea, where I talk about SEO classics. And this one was about building linking confidence, looking at the anchor text that you use in links to other pages on your site and how much confidence they give a person who might visit that page and meet their expectations of what might be on the page based on the anchor text. Building confidence means that you're making it more likely they'll stay and read, and then they'll stay and read other links from that page.
Yeah, I thought the study that Mr. Spool did on the confidence that people have in clicking a link, the words, right? The words are more important than you think. And actually, when you're doing a post, you should be more concerned with how the user is going to see that link than having it help you rank higher in search engine.
Yep.
Because if users don't understand what they're clicking, they aren't going to click it.
It makes it more likely people will come visit your site and read other pages.
Well, and I think the other part of that, Terry, is that if you're making it easy for the user to understand what the link is about, especially now with recent developments around AI, you're also making it easier for the search engine to understand. So, why do people miss that? It's not one or the other. You can do both simultaneously.
For the same.
Yeah, and it seems
That when you look
it's so
up-
logical. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you look up co-occurrences, all you see is talk about keywords, and that's not even close to being true.
Mm-mm.
If you look at the context vectors stuff, it says that 40% of words have more than one meaning.
Yep.
So if you visit a knowledge base or something that's about your meaning, and you look at some of the other words on that page that define that meaning better, and say, I've got to use these words on my page to help define that word that might be indexed better.
Right, and they may not be keywords for associated with that keyword.
Well, plus when the search engines, when the search engines began to expand to not just look at the word, but to look at the surrounding text to try and understand the meaning, that was it was gold there, because now again you're putting the search engine and the user in the same chair.
Mm-hmm.
They do. If one of the things that I did over the weekend was I spent a bunch of time on Google's cloud programs, and the stuff that they can do with like build a summary for you, basically tell you this is what your article should say, build it out, and tools are unreal.
And summarization is one of the semantic pipeline instruments, tools of a program like BERT. It's
Yeah,
what a language model like BERT is doing.
Yeah, because partially it's trying to gauge how it can kind of like guess what the word is without, and that's, you probably know better how to describe it. I just don't have the abilities that you have for that.
It's sort of the same step as finding relevant words. It's find related words that make people understand what they've come across when they find your page.
Well, the relevant words actually help in understanding.
Yeah. Context.
Because they expand the concept.
So do the related words. So if I have a word that's about the word horse, not a sawhorse like a carpenter likes, or a vault horse like a gymnast likes, but a equestrian horse, one that a cowboy likes. So you can do your cowboy shit, and you can have stirrups and saddles and thoroughbreds and stuff like that, and you're explaining right away to a visitor, this is a cowboy horse.
And that's why you can't really look at them as keywords, because our concept of keywords is not that. It's
not anymore.
So when people call them keywords, they're not. They're co-occurrences.
Well, even key phrases is already inaccurate, really.
Yeah. That's why.
Because to me it's contextual. Whether it be the sentence or the whole paragraph or the whole damn document, what's the context that the search engine and the user are both going to derive from reading this?
Exactly.
To put that in the rank brain context, when somebody searches for New York Times puzzle, the search results all have the word crossword in them.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Because most puzzles from the New York Times are about crosswords. They're not wordy. They're not Sudoku. They're crosswords.
Yep.
But soon there'll be Wordle.
Oh yeah, they've got that now.
They've gotten in the news enough for it by being bad at it.
Hey, no news is good news, right?
Well, I think it's really important, like from a writer's perspective, when people say these keywords, and I'm like, there's this whole education process that goes on about topics and what the words in an article say are really doing, and how they relate to the reader and how they relate to search. And it's something that a lot of people really don't understand at all.
Well, Zara, I find myself mystified sometimes. I come across an article somebody's written about semantic SEO.
Uh-huh.
And one of the first things they say is stop using long tail keywords.
What?
It's like, right. What do you replace them with? They don't say. It's like, oh, I'm the magic guru. I'm the great Karnak. I hold
Yeah,
the envelope to my
well,
head and I say stupid shit. And SEM Rush pays me millions for it.
I treat you like a mushroom.
I see a keyword.
Now, I have a question, and maybe Steve is the one to ask this of, because I don't do any PPC. Now, I stopped doing keyword research for content a few years ago because I didn't see it as worthwhile. However, on the PPC side, are keywords not still quite impactful?
The issue with keywords and PPC anymore is Google has continually broadened what things mean as far as setting up your accounts. It used to be an exact match meant these words and nothing but these words.
Yeah.
Now it means what used to be phrase-based. It could have meant this, so we're going to go ahead and say
Broad-based.
and
Broad-based too, right,
yeah.
Steve?
Long phrase-based is now what used to be the old broad match. And broad match is like, here's the dictionary, and let's see what's
iPhone at the end of everything you write.
So I had a
frustrating.
client who attended Bill Neiman's Bogus Hangout, and they were talking to me about how upset they were that they had started losing traffic. I said, when did you research on your keywords last? About 3 or 4 years ago. So you're not looking at Google Trends.
Right.
And he said, nope. I said, isn't that something you learned from Terry? They said, we should have, because they're not searching for those words anymore.
Right. Trying to explain to Google ad reps things like entities and audiences is a challenge because they're not trained for that.
No.
That's a charitable way of putting it.
Yeah.
Very
I mean, there are
funny.
so many topics that you can look at from 2, 3, 4 different directions that are wildly different audiences that may or may not be interested in what you offer. And trying to refine that in Google Ads can be really challenging. Anybody who's running paid traffic campaigns and not religiously adding to their negative keyword list is just wasting money.
Must be huge. Must be huge. But
I have one client, their phrase-based keyword list is about 80 terms. Our negative keyword list is over 6,000.
Wow.
Whoa.
There was a time when I saw phrase.
I'd say there's a problem there, wouldn't you, Steve?
Yes.
What was it, Thomas?
There was a time when phrase-based used to put iPhone at the end of everything. Like, I guess it was the launch of whatever iPhone version was coming out. But literally, we'd be talking about a supplement, and it would say iPhone after.
And you would think that their algorithms and their black boxes would be smart enough that, I mean, they already look at the content of the page when you're setting up the ads. And you would think that they would be able to take the phrases I gave them to start with, the landing page that we're starting with, and let's say it's supplements, a fitness supplement. You would think that they would not be offering truck driving classes.
Yeah, one would think, yes.
You would think this, but this was legitimately something that happened last week.
my God.
I have a client that does fitness trainer certifications, and two of the phrases that came up were truck driver certification, and there was another one, I forget what it was. And you're going, why? There's nothing in the only thing that it had in common was the fact that it's a certification process.
Certification,
But they
yeah.
use none of the other data that they have to say this is probably not a click you need to pay for.
Right. They want to get a few clicks out of it before you put it negative. And if you aren't watching, you're paying for a lot of clicks that were
Or
useless.
very expensive clicks.
Well, the problem there too is those reps are like a non-fiduciary stockbroker. You know, all they have to do is make some money off of you.
If you want to really get some shuffling feet, ask them, how come I got more clicks found at my end than you were charging me for? How is that? They shuffle and say, well, we can't really talk about that, but we don't charge you for everything that gets clicked. So that tells you they don't need that negative list, really.
They got plenty of ways to make money. They don't need to cheat to do it.
Well, yeah, but you know what? They could make a lot of money still and not rate their client, because that's what they're doing. I've literally had their rep tell me every query should go to the home page of a website. The whole
Oh,
Yep.
Jesus.
page.
Yep.
No.
The Google
I
ad
just
rep?
said to the guy, yeah, don't ever call me again. Take me off your list. Don't want to talk to you. Don't want email. Don't want nothing.
And in 3 months, you get a new ad rep and somebody else is calling.
You could get more. You could get more clicks by doing this. Yeah, you'll get more money, and I'll get no more sales.
All right. Clicks do not equal sales.
Well, it's like they're one of the funniest things that they like to do is say, increase your cost per acquisition limit, say from $25 to $50. They're like, but it won't cost you any more money. You won't spend any more budget than you're already spending. It's like,
That must be that new math they taught us back in the 70s.
Give me your lunch money.
They're
Dan
terrifying.
Pease taught me PPC, and he says everything Google offers you, don't do any of it.
Yeah.
Just
Pretty
do
much.
what makes sense to you. One of his was, they'd suggest new keywords. He said, never do that.
Oh, Google's keyword suggestions?
Maybe 10% of them
Well,
are
no,
decent.
they'll tell
They're
you
pretty
you
terrible.
could also do this. And
Oh,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I could.
oh, and part of it was how they assess how an ad does. Your ad, how good it is, how effective it is. That was always wrong too. He
I'm
said,
hard pressed to think of anything that any PPC professional has touted as being very reliable from Google.
Yeah.
Nothing comes to mind.
yeah, a lot of it, yeah. But once you got it in hand, I was managing a contract that was about $100,000 a month, and I was only spending an hour and a half a day on it.
Using a lot of scripts.
Yeah, but not by listening to Google advice.
Right, not listening to Google's advice and not trying to reinvent the wheel constantly. Had it running right and never touched it after that.
Once you
Just-
get an account dialed in,
Yeah,
they
you don't
can
need-
run really well.
Yeah.
The problem is the sand shifts underneath your feet so much you still have to look at it all the time just to make sure.
Yeah, all I was mainly looking for was sites that were sending bad clicks. That's what I spent most of my time doing. I do not ever advertise on the Google network. I always went on what we used to call the content network, get the clicks at half the price, and the people are more likely to be at the buying phase.
I had a client who was spending $100,000 a month on clicks. I re-optimized the site for SEO. We stopped the clicks completely. We broke traffic records.
Mhm.
We made a whole lot more money.
Yeah, I did the work I did with a video company. They were spending a lot on PPC. We put up videos on YouTube when Google bought it.
Yeah.
They still rank for the same videos. This is like over how long when we put them up a year after Google bought YouTube, or as soon as they started putting into the results, I already had a YouTube site with 20 or 30 videos on it. Once we saw we were number one on every query, the guy stepped up production of the videos a bit.
I had a client that
Stop with the ads, huh?
Oh yeah.
I had
To
a
this
client
day, he hasn't done any work on that site since. I worked on it back in, well, that would have been early 2000. And he still ranks. And he hasn't changed anything.
I had a client that went from television advertising, spending about $350,000 a month on TV, to PPC, and we eventually got them down to 20% of that budget just by organic, shifting all the traffic over to organic and putting it into content instead of paid clicks.
Yeah, I never believed any of that stuff. The audience they say for TV and how many people read this magazine and stuff, it's all bullshit. I don't think it's based on any kind of real figures. They're guessing.
It's like a Comcast figure on voice search. Totally fabricated.
Yeah, there's no way in the world to detect that.
So I'm going to change topics real quick. Index Now. Do any of you have plugins on pages that use Index Now?
I removed them, but
Right. Rank Math has it built in.
it doesn't work, right?
I haven't really. I mean, does the button work? Yes. Does it actually index the page now? No.
Right. So
Is
there's
it
no real
increasing-
advantage to it. The only thing I could think of that it might be useful for is if you're modifying your stuff. So, for instance, a newspaper where you're updating articles constantly, they might be able to benefit from it.
But think back to the days of Alta Vista when you'd submit a single URLs at a time, and you didn't like how it ranked. You rewrote them and submitted them again.
Yeah.
And it would come and index the page immediately.
And it was fun to test stuff and see what worked and didn't.
Yeah. So Index Now, I treat it like the original Ping-O-Matic.
Yeah.
We're just letting the search engines know that it's there, and then the search engines will decide whether or not they're going to actually index it or not.
Yeah, Ping-O-Matic's built into WordPress anyhow, so why do you need the other one? So it is, what I'm thinking though is if you're republishing, that's when you can use it. The only reason I say that is because I haven't researched whether when you modify a post, if it re-pings the search, like if Ping-O-Matic runs again or not. So I'm going to do some research and find out if that actually does happen, that Ping-O-Matic is hit again when you modify and save, right? Then Index Now has nothing. And here's another thing to think about if you're going to become, how do you call it? If you need that service, man, they've got a few million now, but go to their website and figure out how they're going to pay for this. I didn't see it. So at some point, it's going to cost. It's got to. Like, that kind of stuff costs money. People don't realize that someone actually pays for bandwidth.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it's two people, the sender and the person getting it. So sender and receiver are both getting charged for bandwidth.
So Terry, you've got me thinking of that zero shot paper.
Oh, yeah, let's talk about that.
So there are a couple tricky things to it. Some of them are common sense if you think about it, but they encase everything in so much technical language, you miss it.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the important things is it's a re-ranking approach. And re-ranking is very simple to define. It's ranked one way using something that's related to TF-IDF. One step past it, it was called BM25. And it's a way of ranking pages based on how closely words in a query match words on a page. So
that would be safe to say phrase matching.
Well, that's the original match.
Right. Okay.
That's the computationally inexpensive approach.
Right.
It costs less money for a search engine to do that.
Right.
So a search engine ranks a bunch of pages based on something like BM25 and PageRank. And then it takes the top ranking ones of those, say the top 1,000 or top 100, and it re-ranks them based on a more computationally expensive method like BERT, which does the prediction and the gaps and masks things and finds things that are missing and so on. So
that's got to be a tremendous savings for them in terms of machine cycles.
Yeah.
To take their 100 best out of 250,000 and re-rank just those is probably giving them a pretty accurate snapshot of the whole corpus.
Well, Google's been re-ranking for years.
Yeah.
If you go back to the Florida update in 2003, that's one of my theories on that is that they used a re-ranking approach for that. They took the top certain number of results and they looked at links between them. And after ranking the original set of results, the ones that had links between them were the ones that ranked higher.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So re-ranking is important. The other aspect of that paper, they refer to as a zero-shot paper. What they mean by that is they're using language. They're training a language model based on certain documents, certain training data, and then they're using that training data for what they've trained on any other types of documents. They may not be close to the originals. If they're not close to the originals, they're referring to their training set as zero-shot data. They're saying this algorithm, we're only using like 80% of it, but these are the best things that we find out of that 80%. So the combination of the re-ranking.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but I've got to run. Sorry. See you next week.
See you next week. Thank you, Thomas. So that combination of zero shot and the re-ranking are worth keeping in mind as you go through that paper.
Yeah, that it's actually a re-ranking, not.
So, I mean, knowing what I know about our industry as a whole, how many people are going to write blog posts saying that the zero-shot algorithm assigns your pages a zero shot of being ranked?
It's not assigning a zero shot being right.
I'm going to go for a double-digit percentage, Steve.
There's another paper from Google called The Effective Use of Data, which says no matter how good or bad the algorithm is, the more data you have to support it to make decisions, the better it becomes.
Sure. Yeah.
That's
Bill,
true.
what I thought was kind of
decision.
Wait, I don't understand.
I thought it was kind of interesting the way they're using that first part, the lexical part of it,
Yeah.
as the initial ranking for a page too. That's how they can put the page into the results. It ranks high, but then it drops once the other second part. It's re-ranked later after it's indexed and those triples and stuff of being analyzed.
Right. So the lexical part is like it's a relevant page for the word pizza. So
Right.
lexically, it has the word pizza on it a lot of times, and it's got a high page rank.
Right.
Now, if we move to the next step, we're saying it's about a page about how to make a pizza. So you want recipes. So you're going to re-rank all those pizza pages to include ones with recipes for pizza. So you're
Right.
re-ranking them. So if you're going to re-rank a bunch of pages about making pizza, pick out all the pages about making pizza first.
Right. That's where I think people like now. I think this is the way I look at keyword research.
Yeah.
Keyword research gives me the query and it gives me the volume on that query so I can prioritize that in my work. Beyond that, that's the end of it.
Yeah.
After that, it gets to co-occurrence and other research.
Now, some co-occurrences aren't very good
Right.
Yeah.
because they're pulling these randomly from training data. So if you use comic books as your co-occurrence data, the word amazing and Spider-Man co-occur very frequently, but they don't mean anything to each other.
Right. The Amazing Spider-Man, my day.
So, Bill, does that mean we actually have to think when we're writing?
Absolutely.
Or get a tool that will tell you what the
That's-
salience is on the entities.
That's going to thin the
tool
herd.
doesn't exist.
That's going to thin the herd quite a bit, Sarah.
The tool I found on Google actually tells you the salience of that entity on the page, and that measures its importance, which is the key to ranking. In my opinion, I tried to get in links to include that information in their data. They might change their mind now.
Hmm.
Because their program is the best for that kind of thing, but it needs to really understand how important a co-occurrence is, because they're one of these programs that are spitting out a lot of useless stuff with the good stuff. So it's naming entities that aren't going to do anything for ranking that page.
So that goes back to the first rule of SEO. Don't let your tools do your thinking for you.
There you
Right.
go.
Mhm.
Tools give you the data. You have to think about that data to use it properly.
So we had another story about Safe Search. And Google Safe Search supposedly works faster now.
Yeah, well, guess why?
Why is that?
For the same reason of what we're talking about now.
Mm.
That's part of the reason. And I think when he was hinting about it could get faster, that's kind of hinting at the program that we were just discussing.
Well, there's some words that are offensive in one context
And not in another.
and
Yeah.
not another. So Google's got to understand context.
Right. And BERT helps it understand context. Would that be a correct statement or?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Another way that I did see cold currents, kind of a definition, and I thought maybe SEOs would get this. It's like co-citations only for entities and not
Don't say that because some tool makers will misunderstand completely.
Okay. Best keepment. That's not a good analogy.
There's a linguist, John Firth, said you should know a word by the company it keeps. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which words tend to show up around each other when you write? Sometimes you choose certain words when you write about something that you only choose because of the previous words you've used. Does it make sense to the person who's listening to you?
Right.
Do they grasp what you're saying?
Right. I think that's a really good way to think about introducing a new idea or concept for a business is that you're tying it into what people know already. So you're actually taking them a step further in their knowledge or comprehension or whatever it is that you're doing. But you can't just blast them with the new. You have to like tie it into what they've known before. I've been working on a project this week, which is introducing a new thing, right? And this is an email project, and my perspective is that you already know about this stuff and how it has problems, and now we have a new, bigger, better, tool that addresses these problems, and not only that, it handles more. So, but I think that's the way that you tie it. You guys can correct me if you're wrong, but in order to help people understand the advantage of the new, you have to talk to them about what they already know.
Right.
So you're not telling people something they already know, but you're telling them something about that's something that
It's
if they think about it a little
what
bit,
they already know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
if they think about it a little bit, they understand.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was my thinking there. But I get what you're saying about what tools would do with that. Every linker would suddenly be a co-occurrence tool.
I had to explain to somebody what the difference between co-occurrence and co-citation was once. Boy, that was hard.
Wow. Pretty easy, actually. One is in relation to entities and the others.
Spend all day building keyword tools. It'll be hard.
I think
Well, I did finally find a tool that does it to some extent, not too bad. And Ryan Jones is the guy's name. I guess he works at Racer. He's got a tool that you can compare to URLs, and it gives you the words that are co-occurring in both.
It does an n-gram analysis on pages.
Yeah. That's not the same as finding entities, right?
No.
That just finds words that are the same on both pages.
That's a good point, Terry. Entities and words are not always the same thing.
Right.
Nope.
Entities can have relationships. Words are in relation to entities.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I say something, I see Bill look up and kind of get it. Did he get it right? He knows I'm not saying.
I was thinking of the patents that talk about knowledge graphs, and many of them often define what the terms they use mean. So one about knowledge graph will talk about knowledge as meaning relationships, which hits that right in the point. If they're going to talk about a graph of entities and strings and what they mean and where they go, they're going to look at the words, the action words related to them, the verbs.
Right.
Is, knows about, same as, so on. And these are important to build a knowledge graph, to know how to connect with other entities.
Right. The relationships between entities.
Yeah. It's sort of like links and pages, nodes and edges. How everything is connected. Because that's your knowledge graph, that's your relationship graph. That's your connection between things. We were talking a little bit about confidence with links before. Well, confidence is also something Google talks about a lot when they talk about connections between entities. How confident are you about that birth date, about that relationship between two people?
Right.
Just that going back to links is so the reason, from a conceptual standpoint, for me anyway, the reason to have a link is to deepen the understanding of what is there on that particular page. And if you want to know more about or go deeper into X, then here you go. Here's the place.
I think there's a lot more looseness with links between, or connections between links than there are connections between entities.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Because anybody can link anything they want to
Yes,
page.
right. But that
And
doesn't mean
there's
it's
not
proven.
necessarily a negative in terms of algorithms, unless it's a topic sensitive page rank or something where the subject of the link does matter. Page rank doesn't say you're only allowed to link from this type of page to this type of page.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
So if you want to link to Google, you don't even have to know that Google is a mathematical expression. If you want to link to the Yahoo website, you don't have to know that it's sold with the Yahoos or the Amazon website.
Has a bunch of Amazon.
Right. So tell me about the story, Terry. Google, indexing issues can be old spam related, but likely not adult content related.
Yeah, that's where people had adult content on a website and they remove it. Google will find that and remove, immediately. Whereas spam, those links could last forever. Like they never forget about it.
So Google's got a memory like an elephant. It
Worse.
doesn't forget old spam.
Yeah. Me and Steve have had this little discussion for years.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So what's the first step you take when you buy a new old domain?
Before buying it,
AdSense.
Before you buy it.
Before you buy it, right?
Yeah.
you check the archive.
So I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna go opposite of general accepted theory on this. I don't. If I find a name that I enjoy or means something or fits with whatever we're doing, we buy the domain. Period.
Right.
Because we can clean up almost anything. It may make things a little more challenging, but if I have a choice between a killer brand or a great URL or a clean URL that's not as cool, I will always take the better domain, always, and do the work necessary to clean it up if it needed. Google said a long time. Well, Google said a long time ago that change of ownership and change of content can reset that domain.
It does reset the domain.
It should reset that domain.
It
I've
should.
had
But it doesn't
experiences
always.
that prove otherwise.
Yes, and the big key there is in my opinion, is the big change in content.
Yeah,
If you're moving to
change. Yeah.
right, if you're moving to an adjacent niche, let's say it's a car site, you turn it into a truck site. Namas.
We had a client who was a 3-letter initialism .com. They had bought the domain name from a museum. They were ranking for terms that were related to the museum long after they took over the site and made it a pure business site. We kept on finding they were getting traffic museum related in their analytics.
Were the pages still up, Bill?
No.
So it was actually linking to pages that were non-existent.
And it was
that's bad. That's not good. I would have went right to the feedback form and say, do you realize these pages are not ever coming back? It'll be gone immediately or pretty soon after. The feedback form, a lot of SEOs say it doesn't work. Well, every time I've submitted it, it has worked.
they had famous commercial spokespeople, well known for for sitcom TV. They were still getting museum-related findings.
Yeah, because Google, like that was a long time ago. It'd be interesting to see if it could happen now. I'm doubting it.
Within the last 2 years.
Oh, and it's still up and that's happening?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Maybe you need
Both
Carrie
sides have a lot of
approach,
people.
Bill. Just call him up and tell him it's gone.
Is there a lot of link equity in the new site?
There was, yeah.
Yeah, no, in the new site.
There was, yes.
Oh, okay. So that's probably how it's still ranking, like it's got museum stuff in it. That would be part of the issue.
They were promoting themselves on TV, commercials, stuff like that. Yeah.
Did you try removing it from the Google index?
We tried getting Google's spokespeople helping us.
Again, it raises its ugly head.
Apparently, they didn't even help you. That's pretty bad when the Google people can't help you. You know, you really got an issue.
I'm curious, Steve, just out of curiosity, when you do that, when you buy the old domain,
Mhm.
how long does it take for the change to appear, as it were?
I'm going to give you the most famous answer available, and that is it
It
depends.
depends.
What we started doing, the last two that I did, we bought them and threw them up with no longer exists header responses. Removed. Lord, I can't remember
Uh-huh.
what it is.
410?
410. Thank you. We just
410.
we went through and did a crawl on archive.org to find out all the pages that they had, and then made each one of those pages a 410. Then went through and submitted all of those pages for removal in Search Console, and then let it sit. And just wait for Search Console to kind of stop updating. In the last case, it took about 3 months before we started getting alerts of new pages being found that don't exist or whatever. And then once we were at that point, we rebuilt the homepage as just a standalone and slowly started building everything out. But we always left the 410 pages in the HT access forever.
Right.
So you turn the
Get rid of all the links.
you turn the old site into a blank slate.
Totally.
And spent a lot of time and effort going to sites that were linking to us and saying, please take the link down. The site no longer exists. Because we're going in a totally different niche or a totally different owner or whatever. We don't want any of those old links anyway, which is contrary to why a lot of people buy old domains.
Right.
They want that link juice.
Yeah, which
But,
is,
we know for a fact that if link juice can pass good, it can also pass bad.
Yep.
And so why would we want to have that flow? There are a lot of reasons to do it that way. But it's not something that, most clients are interested in dealing with.
if you do a mass redirect on that old domain to the front page, of the new one, that will do nothing at all. Like,
It can hurt.
yeah, Google
Because
will ignore it or
You're sending a
decide
signal
that you
that this
should
moved.
pay for it. Yeah,
Right. The signal is that this moved and we didn't move it. It was erased.
Yeah.
So you have to go through and physically erase it.
yeah. In the old days, Google would say that, like, for instance, the one I'm thinking of is stars.com.
Mhm.
Remember, it went from being about one thing, and then it became HTML, and it didn't rank after it. Didn't get the juice that it thought it would.
Thank you, Steve. It's something I would never do, but I was just curious.
If you got anybody that wants it done, let me know.
Yeah, I mean, yes, there might be somebody I know. Who knows?
It is a fair amount of work, and it's very manual work, and not something you can trust to somebody who may or may not list their business on Fiverr.
Yeah.
You really want somebody who's done it before and knows the ins and outs. It's not something that just a lot of SEOs would think that, oh, it's simple. I do this, do a redirect, and we're good to go. And
You could dig your hole deeper.
right.
Yeah.
Well, they don't also understand that Google is the registrar. It knows who owns every site.
There are no secrets from them. Yep.
So
Right.
they did back away from that a couple of weeks ago. They said we do such a small registration business, we don't even look at that data.
Right.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're a registrar, you have access to all Whois data, don't they, Steve?
They have access to it, but whether or not they use it's a whole nother.
Okay.
It's sort of like when they're driving around with the street view cars, and they were grabbing passwords for routers.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody was making the effort to do it.
So they would know every open router in San Francisco.
Right, but if somebody says, "Why the heck are we doing this?" and they stop, it's sort of like being a registrar who doesn't care about who's registered to who.
Right.
I feel.
But they also know content too.
Russia.
Say again,
People
Steve?
also don't really realize that Google kind of has a copy of every document that's ever been on a site. It's not like they throw them away.
Which means, watch out what you put up on sites.
Right. Because you can take it down, but Google still knows about it. Which not too people think that that's a huge thing. What they don't understand is there's different parts of Google. Some of it is just tokens. It's not a full page. That's why they link to, in the cache, they link to the page if you want to look at it. They don't show you their cache. That's important to realize too, that what Google is showing you in their cache is just what's on the page then. Doesn't really reflect what was there when they crawled
So Google knows all the tricks.
it. Google knows every change. Same with links. They know every link that you've ever put up on your website. They know every location where that link was.
So tell me about the wisdom of using PBNs.
Yeah. People who think that Google doesn't know about a PBN are just stupid. They just don't understand the power.
So I get surprised when Google announces finding a new PBN. It's like, well, it's magic. It just appeared out of nowhere.
I think some of that is strategic, though.
Yeah, to let people know that they can catch them.
Yeah, just wake up the natives, keep them on their toes.
Yeah. Because the PBNs will have you believe that, they're uncatchable. Well, you're just fooling yourself. Not you.
It's like natural linking practices.
I remember more than one SEO who we all know used to say that his link wheels were undetectable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's out of business now, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. It's funny how that works out.
As a game back in the days with what was that digital? What is it? That website, Digital Point? Where was that? Anyway,
A Digital Point.
Yes, that Digital Point and a couple of others were, people were selling, blog posting.
Mm-hmm.
They would write their 200-word blog post for you. And I took a lot of joy in using one account to pay them $5 to have them write and distribute a blog post for me, and then on my other account show them their entire PBN because they did, I paid them $5 for one post and used that one post as discovery for their entire PBN.
There you go.
It's like, if I can do this, why do you think Google can't?
Right.
This is
people don't understand too. If you're buying an ad, right? Google knows that's an ad because there was an ad there before you were there. So when they see something that's rotating constantly, they know it's an ad spot.
To your little digital point exercise, though, Steve, that's some cheap entertainment there. I like that.
It was. or not even pay them for. It's like, could you just show me a couple? And they would show you one or two websites, and it's like, okay, using these two websites, I discovered 7 more. Using those 7, I discovered another 30. And it doesn't take very long at all to
Well,
set up
it's
their
it's
entire
it's
network.
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon there.
Oh yeah.
But they think as long as they keep 7, the separation between them all, they can't figure it all out. Sorry.
They're all registered to different registrars and hosted on different services, and it's
Google doesn't even look at that. Who's
No, don't care.
registered them, what service they're on. They know.
The link graph is basically all it really boils down to. And if there's anything Google's good at, it's building and maintaining a link graph.
Because as they told me at a Meet the Crawlers session once, we have lots and lots of computers.
Simplistic way to put it, eh? Sounds like something Gary would say.
Well,
It
it's
wasn't
funny,
Gary, but
some of the new link tools that are available that have visualization built into them.
yeah.
I mean, those will show you a PBN faster than anything now. It's like, oh, wow,
Yeah.
look at all these hot points, and then all this. It's the same thing. And, wow.
It'll show the clusters of sites
Yeah.
and how they're interlinked.
Can you say code citation?
But that's the thing; those guys always think that they're smarter than Google.
And
Yeah.
Boot Hill was always full of gunmen that were faster than the other guy, too.
Well, I hate to say this, but we've reached that time. It's the end of the show. Thank you for joining us. Take care. I'll see you.
Bye,
next-
everybody. Have a
Bye,
good week.
everyone.